Hello there. Welcome to the business edition of PM Express. My name is Philip Nanfuri. Now, last week we brought you a conversation that surrounded the microfinance institutions in the country after Bank of Ghana's 31st May 2019 announcement on the collapse of some institutions. Tonight, we want to explore the savings and loans industry and all connected industries. As we know, the Bank of Ghana will be making another move into that space. We want to find out how exactly should this approach be and how should we carry it out without any disturbances or noises in the financial industry so as to reduce any potential panic withdrawals whatsoever. Because as you well know, this financial services sector is built on trust and faith, and without that, there's nothing to hold it by. So we must ensure that in any approach from the regulator, it's done in an orderly manner, without little or no disturbance, and so that you and I, our deposits, most importantly, are protected, and then the stability of the system. On tonight's show, I have 3 sets of infographics I'll play for you, one after the other, and I'll explain some stuff. Then I'll introduce my guest, and we'll have our discussion rolling. The key thing here is 1, the approach of the reforms in the sector, particularly as we go into the savings and loans, rural and community banks and the finance houses. And 2, the customers, you and I, what should we learn? What do my guests have to tell us? Should we panic or should we not? We need to find out all this in tonight's show. But first, I'll start off with my first infographic. That just gives us a snapshot of what Bank of Ghana has done in the financial space, or the banking and non-banking space, or as we call it now, specialized deposit-taking institutions, what they've done from 2017 till date. Let's take a look at this. Right, so that was just a snapshot of Bank of Ghana's actions since August 2017, and we've seen a total of 9 banks go under. And on the 31st of May, I beg your pardon, we saw 386 microfinance and microcredit institutions also having their licenses revoked. So if you look at it, we're looking at just about 400 institutions within a space of 2 years. Now, at the lower part of the infographic, I asked the question, with the rural and community banks, with the savings and loans, with the finance houses, when will this action take place, and how many institutions should we see close, or should there even be closures of institutions? Now, with this came debt, and debt I mean borrowing. Government had to fund the activities of the cleanup to save the depositors, or to save the deposits, and that took a toll on our domestic debt. I've also put together for you how much the financial sector cleanup has accrued, and this is data from the Bank of Ghana. Let's take a look at that. Right. So we've seen the debt progress from 2.2 billion in 2017, and now we're at 11 billion. It's cost us 11 billion Ghana cedis to ensure that the banking sector is safe. Now with the microfinance, microcredit, and the soon-to-come savings and loans, rural and community banks and finance houses, how much is it going to cost us? Let's keep that in mind as we go on in our discussions. The final infograph looks at the savings and loan sector in particular. How many they are, what's their asset base, and stuff like that. Let's take a look at that. Right, so that was just a snapshot of data on savings and loans companies in Ghana, and it was given to us by the Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Companies, that's GASAL. And you can see there 3 million customers, 38 in number, and assets of over 6.8 billion Ghana cedis. And network, very important, over 1,000 in all the 16 regions in the country. So we realize that savings and loans are very critical and important to Ghana's growth. To help me discuss all this tonight, my first guest, Tweneboah Kodua Boakye. He's Executive Secretary of the Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Companies, GASAL. And my next guest, Yaw Gyamfi, Executive Director, Ghana Microfinance Institutions Network, popularly called Gyamfi. And we're going to walk through all this. One, the approach to the cleanup, what can we do better? And two, you and I, customers, what can we learn? They want us to calm our nerves when it comes to panic withdrawals. They say there's nothing to fear. Well, listen. We'll find out more after this. Right, thanks for staying with us. This is the business edition of PM Express, and my name is Philip Nanfuri. Now, we've taken you through one, most importantly, Bank of Ghana's reforms as the time went on from 2017 to date. We've looked at the debt in it, and we've also looked at the savings and loan sector. Let's start the ball rolling now. We want to find out, first and foremost, the approach that's adopted by the Bank of Ghana. Of course, this is laid down in the Banks and Specialized Deposit-Taking Institutions Act. That's for banks and specialized deposit-taking institutions. And if they are not in that category, then the Non-Bank Financial Institutions Act, that's 2008 Act 774, comes into play. So we want to find out if indeed this approach can be managed better, or the law is a bit rigid in the way we deal with the financial sector reforms. But first, I want to pick my guest's thoughts, that's Yaw Gyamfi, on the recent happenings in the microfinance sector, and ask him if all is well in their sector. Yaw, thank you very much for joining us here.
Thank you.
So the first thing I want to ask is the microfinance sector. I mean, 31st May Friday was one that's in the business world, we will say it was very interesting. 386 institutions in total, all gone, ceased to exist. It's been about 2 weeks from that time. What have you been picking up on the ground with regards to feedback from both the practitioners and especially the clients?
I think from the perspective of the practitioners, a lot of them have actually complained about the approach, in the sense that for some of them, even though they were engaged by the Bank of Ghana, they still have some concerns that they were dealing with. So they were not anticipating that it will come at this time, but rather holding on to complete their processes in terms of meeting whatever queries have been assigned to them. Now, on the part of the clients, it's a little sad. We've had a mix of argument. There are some that said we've actually visited institutions, we're not getting our money, so to them it's okay. Right now the central bank has come in, we'll get our money as promised by the government. Now, there are some clients that have also complained that in the areas that they find this microfinance, they were the only operators within that space. And these ones actually don't know where to go now. Who will be there to serve them? So there's a mix of concerns here and there. And I think in one of the news of one of your sister stations, there was complaint that some area people or the clients were anticipating that we should rather make sure those institutions are giving them back to them to serve them. So in essence, they said their institution is okay. So they don't see why the alliances should be revoked.
Okay. We'll take a quick break now. We'll be right back. Right, thanks for staying with us. Before we went on the break, Yaw Gyamfi, who is the executive director of GAMFIN, that's the Ghana Microfinance Institutions Network, was telling us that there has been some mixed reactions from both the practitioners and especially the customers or the clients. Some feel like, okay, once the government has stepped in, their funds are safe. Others feel like, no, things could have gone in a different way. Now, I want to go to Tweneboah Kodua Boakye. He's the executive secretary of the Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Companies. And we know savings and loans are next on the Bank of Ghana's, if I may call it, chopping board. Let's find out from him what exactly should transpire in how the Bank of Ghana deals with the savings and loans companies. Tweneboah. I see you're laughing with the chopping board. Bank of Ghana's axe is going around. Everybody's being affected. Nobody's going to be left out. The data you provided show that you guys had 38 institutions.
Yeah.
Your assets base 6.8 billion and above, 3 million clients, and spread in all the regions in thousands, if I can call it that. If Bank of Ghana's hammer drops on you, what should we expect? And how should it drop the hammer on you? Because we know it's coming, but how should it be dropped on you?
Okay, thank you very much, and let me say a very good evening to your viewers. First and foremost, whatever Bank of Ghana is doing, it is not new. The law is very clear on what Bank of Ghana is required to do. If you look at Act 930, it tells us what triggers the actions to be taken. Mm-hmm. So it says that if an institution is found to be insolvent simply means that your liabilities that you have taken on board is more than the assets that you have, because you take a liability to create an asset. And so if you take the normal equation, that's the accounting equation that we call it, for you to have an asset, you should have your own money and the liability. So when your money goes to zero, that is if your capital is eroded, it means that for the equation to still balance, your asset and liability should be the same. But it gets to a point where the liabilities become more than the assets, and so you become insolvent. In that case, the law says your license should be revoked. And so when any of such thing happens, through different ways, it could be that people don't pay your loans, and when your loans are not being paid and customers are running away with your monies, it means that your asset will erode. Okay. If maybe you have operational losses and other things also, your asset will also go down. If also your capital has been impaired by certain actions and inactions, which could be different forms. We've seen it from the central bank's actions and publications and from the law. And so these things are very clear. So should Bank of Ghana come today of which it is expected. So we should not be surprised if tomorrow, Friday, you wake up and Bank of Ghana says that the following savings and loans companies are fit to continue doing business. These ones cannot continue to do business. It is not surprising. It is expected. But with all these things, we have come to realize that all the actions by the central bank since 2017, when they started with UT and Capital Bank, coming down to all the other banks, and just last month the microfinance companies, it's that the government and the central bank want to protect the depositor.
Okay.
And so if I'm a depositor, I should rather be jubilating. But as an operator, and for the financial institutions, it is not easy. Because for you to lose your capital that you also put in the business through no fault of yours. Of course, it's not everybody that if you lose your institution, you are a criminal. It doesn't mean you have done anything criminal. Okay. Some of them are very genuine causes why their capital has eroded. And so if anything happens tomorrow, we'll have to look at what caused it. Is it as a result of the economic environment? Is it as a result of customers not paying their deposits, or as a result of a run on the financial institutions? And I always say that should any strongest bank in the whole world, should customers run on the financial institution, say we need our deposits, that institution will go down. And so going down as an institution, it's not always due to criminal activities or any bad decision. So there are a lot of things that happen, and I believe that as we progress, depositors will begin to realize that it is hardcore money that the government and the regulators have pumped into the sector. You played that 11 billion. Look at microfinance one, we added another 900 million. All those monies, it is like the government has bagged it, put it in a sack and said, I'm sharing it amongst the populace. And so far we've saved, with this exercise, we've saved more than 1 million depositors. So if I'm a customer, I rather will have to remain calm and expect that the exercise is completed and that tomorrow becomes better. And of course, those who have lost their institutions, it is never easy. Jobs have been lost. Even if one person who loses his job, he has other dependents. And so you cannot say that if it is one person, it's nothing. It is something. People are admitted at the hospital currently because they cannot access their deposits. People have lost their lives because they could not afford to undergo through certain medical exercises. Okay. And so things are not that easy, but it is something that we should ask ourselves, do we need it? When? It is now. We needed it like yesterday. It didn't happen, but now, if it is happening, let's look at what is ahead of us tomorrow. And that is the more reason why we continue to prepare ourselves and our savings and loans companies. You mentioned finance houses, you mentioned rural banks. It doesn't mean that these institutions are bad. What it actually means is that the central bank says that I will want to pay attention. They had not paid attention to these sectors. And so let us give the opportunity, remain calm, exercise restraint. We should not be panicking. And that's why today we are asking the central bank clean up in the savings and loan subsector, including the finance houses and the rural banks and all that. Should we panic? No. So
you feel there's no need for us to be disturbing ourselves? Nobody should rush to an institution and say, I want all my savings, I want my benefits, I'm taking it all. We should just wait for the Bank of Ghana to complete its exercise.
You don't need to. You don't need to at all. Because in any case, it is rather the shareholder's money that is in the business that he cannot take. You, the depositor, the government are making money available for you. So if even today you go to a particular institution and you find it difficult accessing your deposits, relax. The money may not be there today, but don't forget that some of your money has also been used as a loan for somebody. We cannot go and say that the person should pay all his loan today because somebody wants to take his money. And so it's a balanced kind of thing. And with all these things, if I may add to what my senior said, Yaw said, that going forward, we need to strengthen regulation. We need to also look at, especially at the microfinance level, if you study across the globe, you realize that microfinance that have been very sustainable, the government played critical role in sustaining them. For instance, creating a fund to support those institutions.
And then that's an argument I've heard from a lot of
also looking at what kind of business model that these businesses will need to adopt now, and ensuring that, and to our colleagues who are in operation, make sure that we continue to abide by the rules of the game. And the customer should also believe in it, because we need microfinance. We need savings and loans companies. You need the rural banks. Those of us sitting in Accra, we think that if microfinance is not there, or rural banking is not there, or savings and loans are not there, we'll be okay. Because you have access to a certain commercial bank in Accra. If you travel outside Accra to even the nearest Perrier Bank, you will realize that the services of the Susu collector, the services of the microfinance company, the savings and loans companies, the rural banks, very critical. And so they are a critical ingredient in our national development.
Okay. So you've mentioned the need for the strengthening of regulation. You've mentioned the need for calm. In your submissions, you spoke about the fact that it's not only criminal activities that cause a financial institution to collapse. Will you agree with me, and I'll take an answer from you and Yaw also, that negligence and incompetence on part of practitioners from the banking sector to the microfinance and microcredit have caused some of the problems? So criminal aspects, let's take it out. People just didn't know what they were doing in their offices. They didn't know what they were about. Would you agree with such an assertion that let's take out the criminal elements, negligence and incompetence played a role in how institutions collapse, and now depositors are suffering for someone's negligence and incompetence? Would you agree with that?
Okay, so there are three key players in this whole system. One is the government and regulator. Two is the practitioners who had the license to operate. And three is the customer who does the business with the businesses. If any of these three, the government and the regulator sleeps on his job, this problem will come again. Should the practitioners also sleep on their job without doing what is required by law and the dictates of business, the problem will come again. The customer, should the customer fail to pay his loan, should the customer not obey the rules of the game, should the customer not look at certain indicators? For instance, if a financial institution is required to publish their accounts, and the law says that commercial banks are supposed to publish their accounts by 31st March, and savings and loans, finance houses and microfinance companies and rural banks are supposed to publish their accounts by 30th April. If for 2, 3, 4 years an institution has not published its accounts before, the customer should know that that institution, there may be something wrong. And so it is not a blame game. We all have roles to play. There are roles to play. And so if one fails to do its job, there will be problem.
So government and regulator, practitioner, clients, all of us have a role to ensuring that the problems we see in financial institutions don't happen again. Is that something that you also subscribe to?
Definitely. I think if you look at the issues from all angles, of course, a lot of the accusation usually goes to the practitioners. They have set up the businesses, and so we anticipate they should have all the skills and knowledge to run it. But you see, if you look at the cost of running these businesses and the kind of people that you need, there are times you find institutions that will just subscribe to having lower level of skilled people, and that can pose a threat to it. Those who have good staff with all the requisite knowledge, most times also lose them. In fact, if you check the level of attrition in the subsector, the microfinance sector, you'll be amazed. The number of times that people that we've trained and you need to take them to the next level, you visit the institution, these people are no more. They've gone to another bigger institution. Even though we find them in the same sector, it looks as if the microfinance sector is now becoming more of the training grounds. You put all the skills in there and then the people move on. Now, all these things are things that really suppress the growth of these businesses. Okay. And so, as you said, yes, we can look at all the faults, but there are times genuinely people just try, but unfortunately, they can't hold on to people. And so these are key things that we should all look at. How do we make sure we keep on doing continuous development of our people? And that's where the roles that my brother alluded to becomes very crucial for everybody. Government support to make sure we train people all the time. At what level do we also take up as associations? What level of training can we lay our hands on? Where do we depend on experts? All these things are things that we have to give it a second thought and make sure we align them properly so that at the end of the day, we can have a holistic approach to solving the problems once and for all.
Okay, I'll pick you up on something else, but just to add to what you're saying, a practitioner spoke to me and told me that Bank of Ghana invested heavily in the training of owners and employees of MFIs, and then I think this just goes to lend credence to what you're saying. But something just struck me in both of you, your submissions, and yeah, I want you to help me with this. My colleagues and I on Joy Business, we spoke to a number of market women, traders, the people that you people actually serve. And some of them also expressed mixed feelings. But you'll agree with me that the level of literacy in that part is lower than it will be for somebody who may be watching this at this time. When you are dealing with such people, communicating to them, letting them understand the approach Bank of Ghana is using to save their own deposits, what are the challenges you will encounter? Because I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that putting across such a message to a market woman who has come to dump all her funds in an institution, that she has to hold on till Bank of Ghana makes good or the receiver makes good on this promise to redeem deposits whatsoever. What are the challenges you encounter? I will assume there are challenges, and how do you cross those barriers to explain to the people on the lower end how these things work out?
I think the first thing that you have to do before you enroll anybody as a client, there are certain things that you have to do. Most of the financial institutions go through what we call credit with education, where they give you some level of orientation as to the kind of engagement you are getting yourself involved. And through that, they try to make sure you appreciate your role. You appreciate the role of the service provider, and then you appreciate the role of the bigger authorities when it comes to, let's say, regulation. But how well is this done is also an issue. And so most times, it's only when we have issues like this that you start feeling the real impact of the things we've done in the past. Now, again, because we haven't done what I call continuous financial literacy programs in this country, there's always a missing link where people, even though have taken loans, they have little or next to nothing when it comes to understanding of what they should do. And so in times like this, they are not ready to listen to anything, which you can appreciate, or you should side with them. Because when things were rosy, when things were very nice, nobody explained a lot of things to them. Today that we have challenges, then you are coming to us to explain things. And so that missing link to cross over, what we have to do is that you have to come down to their level. And doing the business, always even targeting those that you are serving. if you are able to profile them very well, you make a lot of wins. Now, today as we see here, there are institutions that have been with clients for over 20 years, and the clients are still working with them. You ask yourself, what are they doing different? They have gone the extra mile to really be with them. They understand how they should work with them. And these clients will appreciate if you go, they come to you and they say they need their deposit. And you explain things to them that today you can't get it, you can get it tomorrow morning. You're not going to go out there to go and then kill the business. So it's a mix of all sort of things. And I believe clearly that this is an opportunity for us to correct a number of issues. And financial literacy should be key in all the things that we are discussing now.
Okay, you mentioned something interesting, killing of businesses, and on this whole financial sector reform, the debt issue comes up. And in terms of the exposure of the financial institution to whatsoever business they were engaging in, we've seen that the banks alone, 9 banks alone, has cost us 11 billion Ghana cedis. Now I ask myself, microfinance and microcredit, we're learning they advanced them almost $1 billion to sort out their issues. Now, savings and loans, rural and community banks, finance houses. I'm asking myself, what exactly will be the cost in this? Because the cost element is important on our domestic economy, and it has implications for us. Yes, depositors' funds will be paid, but what should have been the alternative to ensuring that people's funds are paid and not the government doling out again our own funds to save our own people? Tweneboah, I'll start with you on that.
Okay. One, I open up a company called A. Yaw opens up B. You opens up C. And then TK runs down my company because I cannot pay the depositors. And they have about 1 billion with me, or 100 million with me. Now, because I cannot pay, the government says that I want to help. There is no law that says government should pay these monies. Now, we have Act 931, that is the Deposit Insurance, the Deposit Protection Act. That one says that we will insure the deposits. Currently, these deposits have not been insured by law.
Okay.
Now, this deposit insurance is going to take effect from September. And so we need every institution to be very strong by the September, so that when an institution goes down, you get some of your deposits and the rest goes through the receivership process or the liquidation process and all those things. If I run down my institution and now the government says I'm coughing another, now the savings and loans, you need how many? How much? 7 billion. One way is, okay, I have revoked the license of A, giving all the clients of A to B. Now, the next thing is that, does all the clients of A, do they all need all their monies at a go? No. Not everybody needs all his money at a go. But because of the mistrust, and because of the challenges that people have faced over the period, that when they needed their money, they were not getting. And so you need to make those monies available so that when you revoke the license of A and you are even giving it to B, the people have access to all their money. Okay. And so technically, we don't need all the 7 billion, but because of trust. Because in banking, you need to build trust. And so that is the more reason why we are appealing to depositors and the general public that we need not panic. We need not rush that I need all my money. Now, if you go to town, you will realize that safe or like
metal safes,
those metal safes, the price has gone up. Susu box for kids even has gone up. Why? People's confidence in the system is gone down. So this confidence level is something that we really need to work on. How do we really work on? One, we as a people need to first and foremost believe in the security man we have put in charge of our house. Let me ask the question. If I put up a 4-story building, very elegant, and put a security man at post, and then I come to your studio and say, hey, Philip, when you go to my house, the security man sleeps on the job. The security man is porous. The security man is bad. The security man is worse off. It's a threat to my house. And I lambast the security man in the open. What do you think will happen this night?
Nobody can go inside and do anything.
Correct. And these are some of the things we do to our economy. And so, yes, sometimes the operators have done something wrong. It's not every time that you chastise your child in the open, not all the time. And so there are a lot of things that we need to put in place. The regulator need to do certain things right. The operators, we need to do certain things right. The customer need to do certain things right. Okay. So in going forward, what do? Let's ensure that the monies that we have stuck them in under our beds and in the field, on the ground, under the ground, and the safe and all those things, let's release them. Otherwise, we are creating artificial inflation and artificial shortages of funds in the economy.
Okay, this is the business edition of PM Express. My guest, Tweneboah Kodua, he is the Executive Secretary of the Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Companies, and Yaw Gyamfi, Executive Director, Ghana Microfinance Institutions Network. We'll take a quick break. When we get back, I'm going to ask both of them whether they have indeed bought safes or susu boxes. We'll be right back. Right, thanks for staying with us. This is the business edition of PM Express, and we're just discussing the savings and loans sector cleanup, rural and community banks, finance houses, and how the approach should be and what's best. And both my guests agree that all this is for the betterment of the depositor or the customer, and all these actions are taken with a view that you and I are going to be protected. So when we walk into our institutions, we can pick our funds. Speaking of picking of funds, there's the issue of the receivership process. And my guest was telling us that the Ghana Deposit Protection Corporation will be operational in September of this year. And so from that time going, then we'll see that institution take over this process of ensuring that when an institution goes down, customers, depositors are sorted. But one thing that keeps on coming up is the receivership process. And there are many questions as to how it's done. Some say there's an order in which it's done. Some say it's just done arbitrarily. What exactly is the process? Both guests are going to give us good education on the receivership process. So if you're a microfinance customer depositor, pay close attention to what's going on and get yourself some good information. So, gentlemen, with the receivership process, we know Eric Ananipa of PwC is the one in charge of this. What else can we learn about the process in which we would get our funds? Because there's always some confusion as to where do you even go to, how is it done, etc. How is that sorted out? I will take Yaw first, then I'll come to Tweneboah.
Okay. I think from day one, the communication that came out from the central bank made it clear to everybody that there will be an announcement as to where you go, depending on where you find your institution. And so far, what we've realized is that even some of the people who have been involved in this license revocation, some of the players, have decided to assist their clients by making sure that they get to do where they have to go. And so what has started going on now is that some people have started completing the forms that you need to complete. And these forms come with some level of documentation that needs to be done. Now, for instance, those who have done deposit, there should be some level of proof that you've done the deposit. And then once you make your claims, it goes to the receiver. They also have some level of forms that you complete. Once the form is completed, then they take it through validation process, where they will cross-check with the documentation from the companies and then also from your own submission. And then we'll ascertain whether what you brought is the truth or not. It is after this process that they will tell you, maybe go to institution A, and then they will give you a check. By the time they tell you go to institution A, they've actually done all the groundwork so that once you go there, your name will be there for you to pick your check.
So, Tweneboah, this is slightly different. The question is this slightly different from a situation where these 386, both microfinance and microcredit institutions, were closed and they no longer seek to exist? If they were put under the arm of another institution, would this receivership process still take place? Can you break that down for us?
Okay, so receivership is just that a licensed deposit-taking institution under the Act 930. A licensed deposit-taking institution's license has been revoked. So that that company is no longer in business. And so if you are looking for them, you need to go and look for somebody called a receiver. No longer the manager you used to go and see or the shareholder that was your uncle or friend. And so let me say this before I continue. So if you owe a certain microfinance company and they were chasing you and you were running away or you were throwing them left, right, center and not paying that loan, please, this is a soft advice for you. It is better for you to run and go and pay the loan now before the receiver comes after you. Because the receiver doesn't understand anything like he was your uncle or he was a friend or we have done business for so many years or your business went down. Please go and pay the loan that because you didn't pay, that company went down. Now, the receiver is now taking control to manage the whole process of sorting out those who had deposits with them. Now, as Yaw mentioned, we will now they are taking records of all these deposits and then they will check, do you owe the institution? If you owe the institution, then let's take out what you owe us. What is the balance? If there is a balance, then we will now go through the checking and see, okay, then we need to pay you this. So first and foremost, how much did you put there? The amount you put there, if you didn't owe them, then we say, okay, then we will look at how best to pay you. In any case, if the government had not come in with this money and the institution has gone down, you would have lost every money. And so if you put in 1,000 and you would have lost all the 1,000 and they come and say, we are paying you 700 cedis now, I think it's better than not getting anything.
Okay.
We wished we had not gotten to this place, but we have gotten here. The next thing is that you don't need to pay anybody any money for you to get to your deposits. So we need to also advise people that don't go and stand at the entrance and somebody say, let me help you, pay me this to get your money for you. The next thing is also that you need to cooperate with the process. Okay. If your institution license was revoked or tomorrow your institution license is revoked, all you need to do is to go to the nearest branch and find out what process do we have. You don't need to rush.
Okay. Yeah, he mentioned something about people who are owing microfinance institutions, and non-performing loans is a term we use a lot in this country loosely, and you hear the non-performing loans and non-performing loans. And with the microfinance sector, why wouldn't somebody want to pay a loan? Because if my understanding is right, micro loans, I'm not sure the loans will go in excess of what the banks are giving. So why just won't people pay these loans? What are some of the stories we hear as to the reasons why people don't want to pay their loans?
I think the number one excuse has been the fact that interest rates are so high. But I call it excuse in the sense that, you know, before you get into this game, there's the rules of engagement. And people make sure they educate you to really understand that this is what you are taking and this is your repayment for a period. and then before you finish paying, this is how much you're going to pay. I don't know. So there's some level of agreement as to what your responsibility should be. Now again, there are times people who really need the money. In terms of the assessment from the institutions, it will indicate that your debt carrying capacity or how much you can pay cannot contain the amount you're asking for. So literally what some other people do is that they will take a 10 cedis from here, go and take another 10 cedis from another institution. So instead of getting or taking the 20 cedis from one institution, they split it. And then all these things comes with its own charges.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, when they start paying, then they will just pay part of it. And most times they start defaulting from a certain period.
Okay.
And before you realize, the whole loan will not be repaid. Now, there are times too, people also take what I call high life loans. High life in the sense that
I like the term.
if I need, let's say, 500 cedis, because I have some level of relation with the institution, as soon as I go there, they do their fair assessment and say, okay, we'll give you the 500. Maybe the business that I'm going to put the money in does not require that 500. It might require, let's say, 300 cedis. So they go and then use the 300 cedis, all right? And so in their repayment, you will see that the 300 will be paid with some level of comfort.
Okay.
And then the 200 will become an issue. Now the 200 is becoming an issue because the person took the money, but that 200 was just for, let me get some fried rice, let me get some chicken. Things that ordinarily they won't do.
Okay.
They would decide one night, let me just go and sit out, have time with friends. All these things are high life things that ordinarily you will not do.
Okay.
And so some people fell into that kind of category, and these people really default at some point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting points there. As we draw down on the conversation, we'll be wrapping up shortly. I want to give a minute and a half each to you. I want to start with Tweneboah. Your concluding statements to regulator, to your colleagues, to clients, whoever it may be. What message should we get out there? As we know that in a couple of weeks, I'm sure, or even months, BOG will come down with his hammer. Tweneboah, let me start with you.
Okay, thank you very much. One, BOG revoking license of institution is not new, because we have seen them revoke banks, microfinance, microcredit. So if you revoke a savings and loan, it's not news. Two, the approach by the regulator has been varied, and so we expect that it continues to vary it to suit the dictates of the time.
Okay.
And two, considering the type of market you are touching.
Okay.
Savings and loans, finance houses play different roles. Okay. Rural banks play different role, and we are very sure Bank of Ghana, they are wiser now, because how they did some time ago, now we've seen a change. Okay. And so we expect the process to be better, seamless. If the receiver delays in payment of people's deposits and monies that have been released are not paid on time, it's going to affect the next phase of the exercise. And so the receiver should also speed up the process, okay, bring confidence into the exercise. The next thing is also that the regulator, before they will revoke any license, okay, they have been engaging these financial institutions to correct some of the things that they need to correct. If an institution is in the process of correcting and there is a progress that is seen or can be seen, then the regulator should consider those things. Okay. But if nothing is being done by the institution and we don't see any change, then of course the regulator cannot wait. Okay. The next thing is that to operators, we know it is very hard. Now deposit is not coming. People are keeping the monies in their homes and buying other things. Okay. So let us continue to engage the customers. Let us continue to remain calm. Okay. To the customer, we will want to say that everything that the government has taken loans to save our deposits it is to protect we, the depositors.
Okay.
No need to panic. Let us exercise restraint, support the process, pray for Ghana, so that Ghana will become a better place that we are all yearning for. This thing that happened, if all the players don't go to sleep, especially Bank of Ghana, don't go to sleep, we will improve. But if they go to sleep, we'll come back again.
To the same problem. Yaw Gyamfi.
Yeah, I think my last words to the whole of Ghana, especially to our client, is that no matter what happens, we'll still need banks, we'll still need microfinance institutions, we'll still need savings and loans, we'll still need our SUSU, our credit unions, our financial NGOs and microcredit in the system. And so today, when we hear of Bank of Ghana coming down to any of our institutions, whatever is happening there, it is not the time for all of us to rush on our institutions and go and take our deposit. Even taking the deposit or taking your monies back home is the most risky thing that you can ever involve yourself in. Today, everywhere is not safe, but at least your money with the banking sector is more safer. And so I will entreat everybody, let's keep working with these banks, especially those that Bank of Ghana have said these people are not part of those that we want to touch now. Let's exercise some level of restraint with them. Be with them through thick and thin. I always say that wherever we've got into, whichever stage you find your life, there has been some microfinance, some SUSU somewhere that you have actually participated in bringing you to that level. And so we believe that we are all part of this business, and let's all keep our fingers crossed to make sure we have a safe and sound environment to work in.
Before you go, I'm taking this opportunity to tell the world that the savings and loans is even going to have its AGM next week. To tell the world how far we have come and where we are going.
Sure. This has been the business edition of PM Express. My name is Philip Nanfuri, and my guest, Tweneboah Kodua Boakye, Executive Secretary, Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Companies, that's GASAOC, and Yaw Gyamfi, Executive Director, Ghana Microfinance Institutions Network. I thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening.